Good afternoon. Just a short time ago, we completed people rating the emergency egress system on Pad B here at KSC. The system involves baskets which people can ride from the 195-foot level service structure to the ground along a slide wire. The test went very well. And we have with us the people who rode the baskets and the engineer in charge of the project to talk to you. From your left are Mike Leinbach, project coordinator, astronaut Charlie Bolden, closeout crewman from Lockheed, Albert Jr. Bumgartner, and EG&G fire rescue crewman George Hoggart. And we'll start with a tape of the test for the benefit of the people on deadline. Roll the tape, please.
Golf sequence 35, load the participants in there.
Copy that. One, mark.
Mike, move out of the way.
Basket motion is ceased and the system is heading to the bunker at this time. We copy, thank you.
Yeah.
When I came out of the basket, I rolled out and I found that the helmet it just caused me to balance. Yeah. And it's just training people to, like I didn't do, take your time, climb down out of the basket and walk. But they had said they wanted to get out and run and all that stuff.
Did the deceleration shove you forward in the basket?
No.
Nothing at all.
That's what I was saying. The deceleration, I only noticed by noise, by sound.
Oh, yes, by noise.
You heard it hit the net and went poof.
Yeah.
And I didn't get pushed forward.
Oh.
I didn't have any trouble at all. Once I hit the paddle, I had to push myself down. I had to sit myself down in the basket. And once I got down, then I slid back and put my back up against the back of the basket and just rested my head up against the back. I didn't want to, hold it up there because I didn't know what the decel net was going to be like. And just
Did you hear that bang when the platform came down?
I did not hear that. I was listening for it.
Yeah,
I didn't hear
I
it.
thought you would hear that.
First thing I heard that I noticed was just the whining.
The whining, yeah.
Yeah, you noticed that almost right away.
Are you sweating a great deal underneath that suit?
Yeah.
George?
Whenever you guys are ready.
I'm Junior. Oh, that's the first thing that
Yes, it's got a whole thing on this. Never end up by yourself.
This is George now getting in. Who's our last one?
3, 2, 1, mark.
Got it, man, all the way.
Had a good plane rate.
And now that we've seen the tape, maybe we can proceed across here and get some kind of assessment how the test went. Mike, how'd your system work?
The system worked real fine. We have just completed quite an extensive set of modifications to Pad B. Over $1.5 million has gone into the emergency egress system. We've added 2 wires to the system from our previous number of 5. We've plated the entire underneath side of the 195-foot level of the tower. We've added a new bunker out there. We have really done quite an extensive set of mods out there. We've tested the system numerous times unmanned with sandbags representing weights of riders in a potential emergency. We've done simulations of the system, controlled from the firing room and locally on the pad. And we feel like this test today was really the final thing we needed to do to validate the system, call it ready for use if we ever need it.
Thanks, thanks. Maybe we can get some kind of assessment from the customers. Shuttle?
I think this time I'm going to defer to George and Junior and let them start out because I started out the debrief before.
Yeah. Well, I've been waiting 20 years for this. I was back on the Apollo program when we had the gondola, and we've been working on real hard, and I'm glad I was one that chose to get to ride the basket down, the first one. And the system works good. George?
I've been waiting 20 years also, and I feel real confident with the system now. It's great.
I guess the big thing about the evaluation, or I guess is the best way to call it, we have to be careful and make everybody understand this was not a man rating or anything of that along that line, because I don't think we know exactly what we'd want to do if we man rated it. But we wanted to primarily give people confidence in the system. As a crew member, and I'm sure George and Junior, as potential users of the system, always had confidence in it, because we have always said, let's put a person in it and run it. And for some reason, there was some hesitancy to do that, because with anything like this, there's some risk. But we all felt that it was necessary for the confidence across the board to go ahead and utilize the system. And as Mike mentioned, it's been a long uphill battle convincing everybody that the risk in this case was worth the gain that you got out of giving everybody a sense of satisfaction and knowing that the system worked. So these guys really worked hard. Everybody here at KSC worked exceptionally hard in evaluating the system, making sure that it would be safe when we finally did put people in it. And so today was a culmination of all of that effort. From a user standpoint, I thought it was a very, very gentle ride. That was the first thing. It's I think half the reason that some people were hesitant about using it was because, it looks a lot worse than it really is. When you go through the arresting net, you see the basket bounce a little bit, but in the basket, that's almost imperceptible. It's a very smooth ride down the wire. As we all mentioned, you hear the noise as you go through the deceleration net, and the deceleration net wraps around the side of the basket. But the deceleration is very gentle. It's been measured to be about 1.5 G, and I think those of you who have ever asked anybody about G, if you got on one of your chairs there and jumped down onto the floor, you'd be many, many times that amount, okay, the stop. So it is a gentle stop, and it felt like that. It was very easy to get up, get out of the basket, and then make our way to the bunker. So I thought the system more than demonstrated its capability today, and I'm, like the rest of the guys, I was very happy to be a part of the team that did that.
Thank you. We can take some questions now, and let us know to whom you're addressing your questions. Please give your name and affiliation.
Bill Harley with UPI. Was it fun?
Was it fun? I told somebody that I thought if we had put our kids in there, they would ask for their money back. How do you answer that question without... No, it wasn't fun from the standpoint of it wasn't a thrill ride. It was a very, very gentle ride all the way down. The deceleration, as I said, previously, was relatively gentle. So I think George hit the nail on the head earlier today. He said, that wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, because we had all of us, although we had very much confidence in the system. I guess after you listen to people for years and years, you begin to think that this thing is going to be violent when it, when the basket starts going, and you're going to get jerked around when it gets arrested, and that just doesn't happen. It's a very, very well-designed, sound system that does exactly what it was intended to do, which is get people from the 195-foot level safely to the ground, where they can egress and get away from any hazards.
And one, I guess, for the engineer, for Mike. couple of those baskets were going into the ground a couple months back. I guess you had a clamp break or something like that. Was this just routine stuff when you added the 2 extra baskets that is just going to happen when you're doing something like that, or did you have some kind of problem that was more than that?
After we'd gone through our modifications, there was a complete set of testing we needed to do to validate the system. It's our RD and TE testing. And incidents like that are not unexpected. We knew what happened and corrected the problem and moved on.
Cliff Lethbridge, Reuters. Do you have some sort of a general date or a date on the last man test? And could you describe some of the differences in the system as it is now and as it was then? I know the date is general, I believe, 20 years ago or something like that.
Oh, okay. I think this goes clear back to the Apollo era, and none of the people are here now who wrote it at that time. I could probably put you in contact with one of the gentlemen who did.
Todd Halverson, Florida Today. For Mike, how fast does the slide wire basket get going when it comes down?
We have had a radar gun out there in previous runs. We get going in between 50 and 55 miles per hour just prior to engaging the deceleration net.
And for Mr. Bolden, is there anything you can compare the ride to?
No. It's very gentle, and I don't do very many things that are as smooth as a ride. I wish I could drive that well. I drive a truck, and it's I still don't stop at the stop signs as smoothly as that stops.
And another one for Mike. Exactly how much time elapses from the time you get into the basket to the time you get into the bunker? How long does that take?
The entire process is approximately 35 seconds. From the release of the handle and first motion of the basket to final basket stopping is 22 seconds. And then it's dependent on how many people are in the basket, how long it takes for those people to get to the bunker. 35 seconds is about right.
I believe we have some questions out of the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Mike, Gabby Squirrel, Citizen. How long has the system been in place, and was the only reason that it wasn't used because it was like a bumpy ride?
The system has been in place at Pad A for all the shuttle launches. It's been in place for Pad B for our one launch a couple years ago. The decision was made years ago that we would not commit men to the system. We had known the system's dynamics well enough in the testing, the requirements we put on the system, and throughout all the testing that we did of the system, we saw nothing out of the ordinary. Didn't feel it was necessary to commit someone to the system. We took the advice of the flight crew principally in that they wanted to have some confidence, first-hand confidence, and be able to relate that to the rest of the flight crew, along with the closeout and fire rescue men who would be the most likely people to use the system. And we went with their recommendation to ride the thing.
Do we have any more questions here at KSC? Cliff?
Just to confirm again, there were 2 separate rides, one with you alone and one with a closeout person and a fire rescue person.
That's correct.
Todd?
Mike, let's see, I forgot what I was going to ask.
I'll make up an answer.
How would you characterize the improvements that have been made at the pad? How much safer is it for crews that may have to use it in the future?
I'm very biased on that. I'd like to turn that over to Charlie and Junior and George and let them give you their impression. They're the ones who would have to use it.
I think the system was safe, from its inception. I think what we have done with the modifications that Mike mentioned to you was we optimized the system. We did things, for example, with, you may have heard the big loud bang after I released the basket on the first one. That's like a trap door that comes down. It's just a metal grate that covers the hole where the basket just left. We didn't do that before, and when we ran an egress exercise, somebody noticed that, hey, there's a hole there, and if somebody's coming out to get into a vacant basket, and they, for some reason don't see that the hole's there, they're going to go through the floor. And And there's a net underneath, but it's, what, 20 feet?
Yeah.
So that was one of the safety improvements that came. Otherwise, there were other things that were done. For example, the water spray system was improved. The camera coverage has been improved. Lots of fire protection has been added to the pad in the form of metal plating under the floor. The baskets themselves, Junior and George and I were commenting, we'd like to modify it by taking some of the fire protection off the side so you can see. We were joking that way, maybe. But all that closed-in sides on the basket are there for fire protection for people egressing. And those were all improvements that were made, just, I guess, evolutionary types of things that were made as the system was demonstrated and tested more. These
And
guys have
also,
seen a lot more than I have.
we relocated the bunker. The bunker was, you get out of the baskets and you had to go up over a hill and down, but back into the bunker. Now we just run up and run over to the side and go right into the bunker, which is a lot closer.
I noticed that, well, obviously with 3 people in there's more of a sag and the thing's hanging down lower. And I'm assuming if you had an injured person that was coming off the tower, you wouldn't have this big of a jump as Charlie had when he was by himself. Now that you've ridden down it and been in it through the whole procedure, do you anticipate any problems if you had injured personnel to get them out of there in a speedy manner?
Well, as a pad rescue team leader, our job would be to get those people out of the basket, incapacitated people, and get them either to the slide wire bunker or into the armored personnel carriers. And the height the basket is situated now would make it very easy for us to drop the side. In the past, the end of the basket came out, and you had to unload one person at a time. It was tough. Now we can drop the whole side, get a man out. Sidewalks have also been added in the landing area, in between the landing areas, to make it better footing to get us to the bunkers. So the whole system is made a lot easier on us.
Todd?
I remembered the question I was going to ask before. I was wondering, Mike, if you could elaborate on what types of problems you experienced with the system earlier this year and exactly what kind of fixes you put in.
We had a couple configuration problems. One particular run that I remember, we had the anchorage point was out of configuration, and when our basket reached maximum tension in the rope, we had some slippage, and that was the one incident when we dragged the ground. We knew what caused that problem, simply out of configuration. We have much tighter controls put into our procedures now to maintain control over the configuration. We have quality engineers on site that need to sign off each step in our OMI and maintain that configuration. We feel like we've solved those problems adequately.
Mike, Keith Ward, Channel 6 News, Orlando. In summation, would you qualify this as a success today, a successful test, and elaborate on that for me if you would?
I would personally qualify it as a complete success. The 2 runs that I witnessed, I was down in the landing zone. They looked completely nominal. Our debrief of the 2 tests with Charlie Jr. and George afterwards didn't indicate anything to me that we needed to modify. I feel like we're ready to move on to bigger and better things in the program and call the system operational.
And also, Charlie, I'd like to ask you, being involved in the test today, would you have any qualms about using it in the event of an emergency?
I'd have no qualms about using it, and I've had no qualms about using it prior to the test. That's one of the reasons that I felt it was of utmost importance to put a person in the basket and show that it was, in fact, operational. It's easy to say that something's going to work. It's very difficult to ask management to commit people to something that they've never seen a person get into before. And that was our big reason for wanting to put people in the basket and have them go down and have everybody see that, hey, nothing's going to happen. It's going to work the way that it's designed to work, and let's go back and do our jobs and not worry about it anymore. And we had indications today in talking to just some of the people in the debrief that, hey, I don't think I would have had trouble sending somebody to the basket before, but now I really feel a lot better. I have my confidence in the system, and I was confident in it all along.
When will this be operational? For first flight or
now?
It is operational now.
Okay.
May I elaborate on that? Let me elaborate on the answer we gave you. The slide wire system is not in place for the crewman at launch time alone. The slide wire system is there for the benefit of the workers on the pad, which is 99.9% of the time, that we're here. And that was what we were concerned about. We were concerned that we were going to have some emergency occur on the pad just doing normal operations down here, and that someone in the launch control center would be hesitant to send workers to the baskets because they didn't really know whether it was going to work the way it's supposed to. And that's what concerned us. The average everyday guy that's working up on the 195-foot level or the 175-foot level, if you lose power and you have a fire, how are they going to get down? They get in the basket. And now I think everybody feels very confident in that, and nobody will have any qualms about running up, getting in the basket, and using that way to get down. If we send somebody to the basket one day and we didn't need to, it's no harm done. We got them off the pad, and so what? If we had not utilized it and we lost somebody, I don't think we could have ever forgiven ourselves for that. So personally, I think all of us involved feel very good about it. I think it was a very, very highly qualified success.
Do you have additional questions? Bill?
This is probably
Commander.
This is probably a stupid question, and I just don't remember enough high school physics. If temperature extremes, how much difference does it make? Do you have to adjust the cable if you're launching on a cold day or a hot day to make sure you come in and
Yeah.
once and that's it, regardless?
No, they're set one time. In our testing procedures, all the testing we've done on the system, we have done light loads with the high wire simulating a cold day, and the heaviest basket load with a low wire simulating the hot days. And as long as we're within that envelope, we're in good shape, and we are there.
Excuse the bum, Mike. If we have do we have no more questions? In that event, that concludes this press conference. I'd like to thank you all for coming.
Go ahead.